This video I'm going to show you how to create domains and build a relate in a geodatabase in ArcGIS Pro. For this particular example, we're going to use some data that my students collected on city parks and playground equipment in Casper. And just to show you what this video or what this data looks like, I'm going to zoom in on a city park here in Casper and just kind of show you what my students did. And let me pan over. So this is Washington Park, for example. And as you can see, these parks have changed somewhat over the years, but what my students were tasked with doing was GPSing the outer boundaries of each piece of playground equipment. So they would GPS the outer boundaries of the playground equipment, and then they would take a dot of where the playground equipment was, so like the swing sets and the slides and things like that. And then what my students were tasked with doing was building a geodatabase for the city to where they could keep track of all of the maintenance issues that go on with the park or the playground equipment. For example, once a month someone from the city goes out and inspects the playground equipment to make sure that it's safe for the kids to play on. So again, my students were tasked with collecting all of this data in the city and then building a geodatabase that could keep track of those maintenance issues. And so I'm just going to do an example here where we set up a maintenance table for the playground equipment. Okay, so you can see here we just have a simple geodatabase called City Parks, and there are two feature classes: a polygon feature class of the park borders, which is the red outlines here, and then a dot, a playground equipment, which is a dot, which is where the swings and the slides, the individual playground equipment is. And again, this particular example, we're going to set up a repair table and relate it back to the playground equipment to keep track of maintenance issues. And along the way, we're going to set up what's called domains. Okay, so the first step number one would be to set up our repair table. So I'm going to right-click the City Parks geodatabase, go to New. We want to build a new table. So I'm going to call this Playground Maintenance. Okay. I'm going to click Next. Now this is where we figure out all of the attributes that we want in this repair table. So for example, the person that goes and inspects the playground equipment. So we'll call this inspector, and that'll be a text. The date that they inspect it. So date. And the type for that will be date. Maybe date it was repaired, so whatever issue they found, the date of the repair. Maybe the cost of the repair. So that is going to be, well, we'll leave that as text. Even though it's probably numbers, we'll leave that as text. There's probably a bunch of other things that we would want to put in a table like this, but let's just start with that right now. Well, and then the last thing we probably need before I click out of here is we're going to need to know the name of the park. Okay, name of the park that this is in, and that'll be text as well. And then we're going to click Finish, and so we've built that table. Okay. The second step is to next step would be to create any domains. Now remember what a domain is a set of variables that you can enter into an attribute table. So if I open up the playground maintenance table that we just created, which of these columns could be domain driven? In other words, which of these columns would have just a certain set of finite variables that we could click on to populate the tables? For example, there's only a certain number of inspectors for the city, so we could enter in all of those inspectors' names to where we didn't have to type them into the table. We could just click on them. That would make it a lot easier. Also, the park name, there's only a certain number of parks in Casper. We could enter in all those names, so we could just click on the name instead of having to type it in. Okay? So we are going to build a domain, you right-click on the geodatabase and go to Domains. And you go to the Domains tab and click on New Domain. So we will do inspector. So the description for this would be all the inspectors that work for the city. And it is text. And then over here on the right, you enter in all of the people that are the inspectors for the city, and you give them a code. So for example, I'm just going to make some names up here. Number 1 could be me. Number 2, and again, I'm just making names up here. Could be Bill. 3 could be Jane. 4, Jim. So we have 4 inspectors that work for the city. Okay, and I'm going to go back over here to Domains and click Save. Another domain that we could have. So again, click on Domains, go to New, would be the park name. So the description for this would be name of the park in the city. It's also going to be text. And I'm just going to make up there. I just automatically, since I'm familiar with this data, I know of some parks in Casper for sure. So for example, AP is Adams Park. I believe PVP, Paradise Valley Park. Obviously, we would go through and enter in all of the names of every park in Casper, but just due to time and the length of the video, I don't want to have to do that. So I'm just going to do 2 of them. Okay, maybe I'll do one more. One more domain I know. Oops, not a domain, but a park is MCP1, which is McMurray Park 1. Okay, and I'll save that. Okay. Now, we need to associate those domains with the correct column in our maintenance table. Okay, so I'm going to right-click on the table here. Let me remove it from ArcPro. I'm going to right-click on the table in Catalog and go to Properties. Okay, so I added my table over here into my map. I'm going to right-click on my playground maintenance table and open it. I know that inspector and name are domain driven, so I'm going to highlight inspector. I'm going to right-click on it and go to Fields. And then, so here's the inspector field right here. I'm going to go to the domain. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to associate it with the inspector domain. Okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing with the name column, except name is going to be associated with the domain of park name. Okay? I'm going to go up to the Fields tab and click Save. And I can close the attribute table. Okay? So step 1, created our maintenance table. Step 2, created the domains. Step 3, associated those domains with the appropriate columns in my maintenance table. Fourth step, I need to link the playground maintenance table to the playground equipment. Okay, so we're going to do that through a relationship. So to create a relationship, I'm going to right click on the geodatabase, go to New, Relationship Class. And so the origin table will be the playground equipment 1. The destination table will be the playground maintenance. Your origin table is always the data that you see on the map. In this case, the playground equipment 1, the dots on the map. The destination table is always your standalone table. In this case, the playground maintenance table. This is what the relationship is going to be called. That's fine. The relationship type is going to be composite, and what that means is if a playground gets deleted, all of the maintenance issues in the destination table will get deleted as well. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that wouldn't be good. Maybe we'd want to keep a record of those maintenances, even if that playground equipment is torn down. So maybe let's make this simple. Let's see. The other thing you need, the last two things you need to do is skip down here to cardinality. This is not a one-to-one relationship. This is actually a one-to-many relationship, because for every one playground equipment, you can have many maintenance issues with it. Okay? So this is actually a one-to-many relationship. One piece of playground equipment can have many maintenance issues. Finally, you need to tell the GIS, how do these two tables relate to each other? There has to be some kind of data between the two tables that are the same. In this case, that data is the name of the park that the equipment is in. So we want to choose name for the primary key and the foreign key. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and click Run. And if I close the geoprocessing window, and now we can look at our city parks here, and you can see here's the relationship we just built. Okay? Now let's go in and test this out. So let's say I work for the city, and I just went out and inspected a park. Okay, so I would come into my GIS, I would open up the table, open up the maintenance table, and under the inspector, let's say Jeff went out, and you can see here my domains are working, right? Remember earlier we typed in the domains for the inspectors that work for the city, Jeff, Bill, Jane, and Jim. Well, there they are, so that's good. My domains are working. So let's say Jeff went out and inspected today's date, the 6th, and the park was Adams Park. Okay. Let's do another one here. Let's say Bill went out and he repaired Jeff's inspection on the 13th, and the cost was $100, and this was at Adams Park. And again, I'm going to do one more here. Let's say Bill went out on the 20th and inspected Paradise Valley Park. Okay. Okay. All those are saved. Oop, I don't know why it didn't save. Just save those edits. Okay, now we can close the table. So we've got a series of maintenance inspections and one repair. Okay, let's make sure our relationship works. So what should happen is, let's say your boss comes in and says, I need to know how many maintenance issues are associated with Adams Park. Okay, so you would open up the attribute table, you would find Adams Park in the list, so you'll highlight it. Here it is right here, AP Adams Park. And so that's how you relate. That's how you build domains, or that's how you create a table, build domains, and then associate the domains with a table, and then relate the two pieces of data together. And again, this is just an example using city park data, but this is what I want you to do with the geodatabase you've created from Unit 3. Again, make sure you let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, and talk to you all soon.